So, hello and welcome. My name's Steve Nobel, and today I'm speaking with Jonita D'Souza on Reclaiming the Dark Feminine. Jonita is a feminist lifestylist, a creatress of Exploring Femininity Limited based in London, assisting modern-day women who struggle with burnout, overwhelm, and body love to reconnect with their feminine and sensual energy using ancient Taoist and Tantric arts. Jonita is a certified life coach, NLP practitioner, master hypnotherapist, and combines the teachings of feminine mysticism and shamanism in her work. And her work is facilitating monthly moon circles, online workshops, and sacred feminine retreats. Her website is jonitadasouza.com, and we'll send a link out with this podcast. Hi, Jonita.
Hello, Steve. Lovely to be here and finally use this space and talk to you and on my favorite topic.
Yeah. Well, were you always a kind of in this work, or was there a life before this, doing some other job?
Yeah, definitely. There was a past life, I should say. I was born and raised in India and born in a Christian family, raised there. And that's pretty much the past life story. I was raised to be, in a very competitive environment. I went to get a degree in IT engineer and ended up becoming an IT engineer, worked in corporates and then moved to London only 12 years ago. And I thought that this was freedom for an Indian woman, if you see, from what I knew from movies and TV shows, being in an Indian society, there are certain limitations to how you can or how you have to be as a woman. And I thought London is going to be my answer, for freedom and independence. And so that did not actually work out very well for me. So, I was soon caught up in London's very busy environment, which was really attractive to me as coming from India and, seeing different cultures and being with open-minded, multicultural environment. So everything was really nice. But that started to take a toll on me, and I went on a wrong, I would say, a path that did not serve me. I started drinking a lot, went into drugs and all of that, and kind of lost myself in the freedom that I got. And I realized something very important, that as an Indian woman, for me, I was always seeking for independence. And that independence for me at that time meant my way of expression. So when I got to the West, I thought I got that, the modes, the means of expression, just by doing what I want, wearing what I want, But what I realized that women here they lived in an invisible, I would say, prison, which we were not aware of and which I had to experience for myself. So we have the independence here in the Western culture, but a lot of it is focused. The expression is always focused on the outer self, like how we look and how much makeup we have, the clothes we wear. We do our best to look good so that we can be more accepted in the society, to get attention from people. And it's a very outward focus that kind of made me really confused as a woman. So I did not understand what it really means to be expressed as a woman, because nothing was serving me. So that was past life story, which led me to a lot of inquiry about femininity.
What was the shift like of stepping into this work? Was it easy for you?
Not really. It wasn't. I don't think, I have never heard anyone say it was easy.
Yeah.
It really comes from, being in that rock bottom place. At that point in my life, I was questioning, what does it really mean to be fully expressed as a woman? And that was the time where my father in India passed away. So I had this kind of depression, because I was, daddy's girl, and went more deeper into alcohol. My body started to show up eczema. My relationship became a bit abusive. So all of that happened at once, which led me to inquire, what do I need to do to break through this, to understand myself, my worth? And I ended up through a Facebook ad with a woman's circle, where this lady was talking about essence. So she pretty much taught about finding and discovering your essence. And she said, this is the most beautiful gift that you can give to somebody. Show her or show them their essence. And I started to cry because I did not understand what my essence was at that time. So And then I took a serious decision to figure this out. And the journey was excruciatingly painful in the beginning because, of course, it involves looking at a lot of emotions that we as normal day human beings kind of numb or are scared to look at because we don't feel uncomfortable. We feel uncomfortable with those emotions. So it was, through a lot of body work, lots of tears. But I must say that it has also been the most beautiful journey that I would never have exchanged for anything else through my past life.
Wow. Well, let's talk a little bit about the kind of goddess revolution, because I noticed when I was at Alternatives for a number of years that the goddess was returning. There's a lot of feminine type of spirituality returning, a lot of goddess groups, a lot of women seeking empowerment, and the poor men were kind of sitting on the sidelines. And 85% of audiences, typically in my audience and then with Alternatives, was women. Women were curious. The men were kind of staying at home or being dragged along. Not always, but typically most, all spiritual audiences, women. Of course, if you go into the NLP and hypnotherapy world where you can make money and these things, men were there because, hey, it's a way of making money, and I understand that. So what about this kind of return of the goddess? What would you say about that?
It's interesting because you're right. I think more and more women are beginning to feel something, and it's kind of like a feeling that when I started, and also having worked with many women, having heard about their experiences, everybody says exactly something that they cannot pinpoint to, is that there is something that begins to, shuffle inside of them that makes them realize that something is not right. Something is like, I'm living a life, maybe I have the best career, money, love, whatever, but something is missing. And I think women being like this, I don't want to discriminate men and women, but it is true scientifically, biologically, that we women can experience wider range of emotions at a very short time. No wonder it's really difficult for men to understand women when she shifts from one emotion to the other, and how much she is also affected by the cycles of the moon specifically. So I think a lot of women began to realize that there is something missing despite of having a really nice life. There's some kind of fulfillment. And I feel like we are this generation of women that are one of the most privileged if you look back. However, we are also this generation of women which are much more depressed, lonely, with all sorts of illnesses and all of that. So I think it's very evident that no one knows that it's the goddess returning. Many people, I think 10 years ago, did not even want to name this term, and it's the goddess returning. But I call it the feminine returning. And it's not for the women, because men like yourself are also feeling this, and it's the principle that is returning back, which obviously, because several women have it as a dominant principle, are feeling this.
Yeah, for sure. Well, in olden times, matriarchal times, the aspects of the goddess, we could say, or this feminine principle, was portrayed in very different archetypal energies. We kind of mothering. We have kind of shamanic type goddesses. We have warrior ones, or Athena, who could help people with strategy, and we had kind of ancient snake goddesses, which are much more primordial, and a whole range of them, and then we have the lighter ones, which are kind of lighter and brighter, Sarasvati in India that brings learning, but there's also the darker side. There was a whole range of things, the darker being something like Kali in India, or perhaps Medusa, maybe not be seen as totally like a goddess, but a kind of demonized one. Yes. Or you had Sekhmet in Egypt. They were not light and fluffy. They were strong, powerful. And this is the aspect of the dark goddess, perhaps, that also we're talking about, that's coming back. This power. It's a power of. I met Sekhmet and Kali in meditation years ago when I used to meditate on these, and I felt at the time with both of them, I was expecting this really kind of very full-on energy, and actually I found them both loving, and I remember thinking, why is this is very strange, and I had the feeling that people on their path of dismantling the ego would get a different response from these energies than ones who are resisting. It's almost like there are different facets of that. I don't know, what's your experience on the darker side of the goddess? It's
really interesting because a lot of realms and modalities of spirituality and personal development does not touch this aspect, the dark side. The focus is always on the light and positive emotions. And what I realized is at that time when I began my journey, I did not know that I was actually journeying the underworld, journeying my dark emotion. Now I can look back and I can understand that if it wasn't for me to face these dark emotions of mine, by dark, people have kind of demonized the word dark. The dark does not mean evil. The dark usually only refers to the side that is our source of mystery. That's the shadow, you can say. But this source is pretty much the secret to our rebirth. And this is that unconscious part of our feminine that is really longing to come back, become conscious, to be seen. And I feel that without exploring this dark goddess, this dark feminine in ourselves, we cannot step into our fullest potential. So we must understand that this darkness is not a place of fear, but it's a place of deep, complete, unconditional acceptance. Just like, the loving darkness of our mother's womb, as you said, in your journey with Kali, when you work. So I worked a lot with Mary Magdalene, the dark goddess, as well as Lilith. And I realized that, they have been demonized or Mary Magdalene, she's been portrayed as the sinner and all of that. So I realized by using and working with those archetypes, they are really this unconditional, they are asking us for this unconditional acceptance of parts of ourselves that we have chosen or we are unconsciously, putting aside and numbing and then just carrying on with our day-to-day life. I feel that, as I said, it's the darkness of our mother's womb that I relate to the dark goddess. This is where the rebirth happens. This is where creativity happens. This is where life and manifestation unfolds from. So it's a very beautiful, but a very, I would say, it shakes the soul out of you.
Yeah.
I would say. It is a journey of the courageous ones as well, I must say. And we have to stay put and trust the darkness.
Yeah, well, culturally, I think that the feminine energy, we've shifted from matriarchy to patriarchy, where in matriarchy, women were accepted as being powerful. There were priestesses and people sat in circles and decisions were made that way, and life was seen as sacred. But as patriarchy shifted and became a domineering force, we had these more pyramidical structures. And the Bible, for me, Lilith was this wife that didn't want to obey Adam. She says, I'm not going to lay on my back and think of, the Garden of Eden as you want me to. I'm going to do what I want to do. And she was demonized for that. And Mary Magdalene, there was a lot of stuff coming out about Mary now, isn't there? That she, rather than being this prostitute who kind of washed Jesus' hair with her feet with her hair, she's this powerful priestess in her own right, and it's slightly coming out with these books about Mary Magdalene coming out now. And what would you say about these two? Are these culturally women being suppressed, and these myths are coming back in a different light now? We're seeing these women as powerful people that were sidelined, powerful beings.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel that these goddesses, they represent certain archetypes, and more and more women are kind of relating to it, relating to the energies that they carry, because we have suppressed a lot in, whether it was medieval times, ancient times, matriarchal times, and even now the patriarchal times, we have suppressed a lot of those emotions, similar emotions in our own ways. And that's why a lot of women are resonating to these archetypes. When we talk about Mary Magdalene, she worked side by side with the masculine, so they were the sacred union. She also represented this unconditional compassion towards even the people who hated her. So she, these are the things that we are experiencing in our day-to-day lives and when we walk out as well. So people are against each other. And to bring this sacred union back to the world, that the feminine is coming back to teach us this. These archetypes are showing up, teach how we can embody unconditional compassion. But of course, we have to start from ourselves, how we can support the masculine with our rising, how we can enjoy being in our sacred body and enjoy the sexuality and sensuality of our body. So Mary Magdalene pretty much represented that, and which is why she was suppressed and taken out of the Bible, because she was this power source.
Yeah.
And we all are feeling that. No one is talking about it, but we all are feeling that. And every woman that I talk to about ancient lineages. I see women shaking their head. Yes, yes. It's like, we are just remembering. We're not learning anything new. We all are just remembering.
Yeah, I do want to bring men into the conversation a bit, being a man as well. That it doesn't mean that embracing the dark goddess is only for women.
Yeah.
This is a work for men also. All the dark aspects, I suppose. There are darker masculine aspects perhaps, but this is embracing these older energies, these shadowy energies that perhaps culturally have not been accepted for a long time, because we're both masculine and feminine energies. So you might have very men who are more feminine, and actually this work would be even more powerful for them. So what about men?
Yeah, it is really interesting. With men, we don't talk about the feminine and the men. So I'm really glad that you're bringing this topic together, because men are also feeling this, and a lot of men, for men to feel safe to touch those emotions, and connect with their feminine, requires a lot more of unconditioning and unlearning. Like giving up the word man up, and learn how to just feel the vulnerability and rawness. And I feel that the reason I concentrate and talk more about the women is because I feel that if women are really good space holders, and when we learn not to emasculate men, when they are journeying into their emotions, then we come into a good union. For men, the dark feminine also represents similar things. The characteristics, the archetypes, the principles are the same in men and women. So it's for the men, it's all about how much they have numbed themselves to show emotions, not to show tears, to be seen as a weak man. And all of these things are much more resonant when you start journeying the dark feminine, because again, it's for both of us. And by doing this journey together as men and women, I think we only supporting each other in ascension. Because I had a really beautiful experience when we were journeying the dark feminine in a circle of both men and women, and the men were chanting the Om while the women were, doing the womb breath. So it was like a release that I could see happening, for the men and the women at the same time. So it was really beautiful union to see. It's just not for the women; it's for both, and we have to do it together.
Wonderful. Now, I think you've got a little meditation process for people to listen to and to open up to these energies.
Yeah, and again, this can be for both men and women. I thought of doing a small guided journey, which you can tune into and meet your dark feminine.
Okay, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you. So before we begin, it will be great if we can create a safe space. Since this is a journey to the dark feminine, it is best to do this in the dark. So if you can't be outdoors in the dark and this is uncomfortable to you, then you can of course be indoors in the safety of your house. Create a safe, quiet space in the dark. Probably stage the room and switch off the lights. Have your journal handy. Maybe you will have some points to write later, and we can begin. So I have my bowl. I will begin by just bringing a sound. So I invite you to lie down on the floor right now comfortably, in any position that you feel comfortable, just lying down on the floor and beginning to move your body to any of the sides, maybe the left or the right, any side that may feel comfortable for you, that comes naturally. And if you are now on your side, bring your knees closer to your belly so that you make yourself feel comfortable, like in a child pose, but on the side. And this is how you rest in the darkness of your mother's womb, lying on your side with your knees closer to your belly and just feeling comfortable with your ears close to the ground. Maybe just listen. This position is also considered to be a position of deep rest. And I invite you from here to just practice listening. Listen to your surrounding. Listen to the silence. Listen to the sound of the silence. And we will begin by some deep breath into our bellies. Maybe just take a deep breath in expanding your belly so that the air reaches your belly, holding it for a couple of seconds, and just exhale through your mouth. 2 more times, deep breath in into your bellies, holding it, expanding your belly, and exhale through your mouth. Breathing in to your belly, expanding your belly, holding on, and exhale. And I invite you to just listen to the sound of my voice as I introduce you to the dark feminine, and then I will leave you in silence to listen to her. The dark feminine is a mysterious and a hidden figure in this patriarchal society, and she has been portrayed to us in roles of wickedness, the bad mother, the drama queen, all of the emotions that we are not interested in looking. But she has other faces. Her other face is face of compassion, courage, healing, and also rebirth. So when we do a journey of the dark feminine, we travel deeply into ourselves, seeking answers for difficulties, seeking strength in a crisis, or even seeking some kind of change when we have become stuck in our lives. And often we wait to be thrown into these journeys unwillingly. And these unwilling journeys usually begin with something that is not quite right in our life. We prefer to ignore that awareness, that small voice, that whisper, those warnings that the dark feminine continuously gives us to on a daily basis about those inappropriate choices, jobs, lovers, food, decisions. The dark feminine tempts us with things that we really long to do, or we ignore, and we carry on. And when we carry on, ignoring these soft whispers for quite a long time, it gets to too much, and we get swamped, many times collapsing under stress, emotion, illnesses, crisis, burnt out. Sometimes with an outright disbelief that this could be our life. And we feel that everything around us is falling apart. And sometimes we are then forced to begin the search for understanding, the search for change. And this is an unwilling journey into the dark. But right now, I am inviting you to change this pattern and instead invite our deep presence to listen to our dark feminine. Listen to her as it is, with no filter, with no judgment. Just listen to the wisdom that she has to share with us so that we put an end to these unwilling dark feminine journeys and instead make friends with her. There is no right and wrong, good or bad. It is about us accepting our dark feminine as she is. Because it's always only after through the journey of a dark feminine reality, also known as the dark night of the soul or the underworld, the worst times in our lives, the times we felt out of control, in pain, in grief, in illness, in distress. Usually only after this journey follows the emergence of new inspiration. And this is the process of rebirth by the dark feminine. Check in your breath. Are you still breathing? I invite you to meet your dark feminine and listen to your inner voice, your inner self that lives in the darkness. that lives in the stillness, that lives in silence. What has she got to tell you right now? Especially about the parts of your life that is not working, that is making you unhappy or even ill. Listen. The dark feminine is the promise of your power. This power within you that is struggling to be free. A tiny whisper within you. What is it? The dark feminine is often that part of yourself, your powerful part, the dangerous part in you that you have repressed to fit in. What does she have to tell you right now? Just listen. If you're not able to listen anything, this practice is still worthwhile because sometimes it takes a little bit more time for the dark feminine voice to trust you that you are truly willing to listen. Just trust. And whatever comes up, just listen. When you feel ready, you can come back to the sitting position and just journal whatever the dark feminine had to tell you, all those parts of your life that is making you unhappy, that's not working, the power within you that is struggling to be free. Whatever came up for you, just listen and journal. And there is nothing else that you are required to do in this moment to build a relationship with the dark feminine, but beginning to listen to her, because she will show you the way.